Look, now that I've created my webinar classroom, the first thing I always feel it's a good idea to start populating your classroom with something at least before they join the classroom first up. One or two settings that are quite important to take note of. I'm going to go straight to this. Or before we go into the settings, let's first look at the 4 tabs that we have here at the top, so that we understand what each of these tabs actually means for us. The Stream and the Classwork tab are 2 of the tabs that you're going to be working in most. And I think there's a lot of confusion as to what each of these tabs actually do. The Stream tab is primarily used for communication. In other words, if you need to send messages out to your learners. Whereas the Classwork page is where you're actually going to be loading your content. Now, what a lot of people do, because the Stream is the first thing that opens up, they just use the Stream to post their content, because you can do that within the Stream as well. So when I'm sharing, or when I want to share something in my class over here, you can do it in the same way that you would share something on a Facebook or share something in any other social media platform. You can add your attachments, etc., etc. There's a reason why we don't necessarily want to share things here, because the minute that we start sharing content in our Stream, what happens is new content simply moves to the top. Yes, we can move posts to the top, but the content that I'm adding isn't grouped in any way, right? So what we typically want to do is we would rather want to add our work, the work that we want to share with the learners in Classwork. Now, there's different ways that you can use it, but I generally don't want everything that I paste in Classwork to immediately appear in my Stream as well. So in order to set up our classroom correctly, we're going to click on this gear icon, which takes us to the class settings. Now, here we see, in general, there's a few important things to take note of. Classwork on Stream. So in other words, what this means is the minute that I post any content on Classwork, it will immediately appear on my Stream. Now, I want to change that. I would rather it doesn't show anything there. So I'm going to hide the notification. Again, you don't have to do it this way. It depends on how you want to do it, right? Then Stream, you can also decide, do you want your learners to be able to post things on the Stream, or do you only want them to actually add comments to things that you've posted? Or what you can obviously do is, if you want to use it for communication, you don't want them to be able to do anything, we just simply click on only teachers can post or comment, right? In this case, what I actually want my learners to be able to fully engage. So I'm going to say students can post and comment. Then one thing to take note of here with Meet. Meet is a feature that is built into the G Suite for Education accounts. So what you can actually do is, like the system that we are using now, we are doing the training through Google Meet. You can generate a Meet link. So in other words, if I click activate this generate Meet link, what's going to happen is there will be a Meet link for the students that they can see on the classroom. So whenever they open the classroom, they can click on that, and then they can go into the classroom into a video conference. Now, this is something that can be quite useful once learners get used to it. What you can do is, what a potential use of this is, you can say you've got certain hours that you're available that they can actually contact you through Meet, and then in those hours you switch it on. But when you don't want them to access, you just simply switch it off again here at this button, right? We're not going to go into grading in too much detail. We'll look at that at a later stage, right? So once we've got that set up in the way that we want our things set up, now we're going to start adding some work. So we go to Classwork. And what we're going to do is, first we want to create a topic. So the topic that we are going to be discussing with our learners today, we're going to call it poetry, add. And once I've created a topic is essentially a folder. Now in this folder, we want to add certain things. If you look at the different things that you can add here, there's an assignment, a quiz assignment, a question, and material. Now we're going to see if we can get through as many of these as we possibly can today. Before we go to that, I just want to talk about this class drive folder quickly. Now, the class drive folder takes you to a folder that's automatically created in Google Drive. But be careful. This is not a folder that you can copy content into. If you copy the content into the class drive folder, just take note that the learners will not see the content then. The learners will actually only see their own folder. So the class drive folder takes each individual to a folder that is unique to them. This means it's essentially a storage space where they can keep their content for that specific subject, or a teacher can upload files into that folder for themselves for later use as well. Right. So what we're going to do is we want to add some content here first. So let's go to create material. We want to add 2 poems that we're going to right. The first one we want to add is a poem called I2, and now we're going to add material that has already been created. Now, so that everyone understands, when you're using Google Classroom works very well when you're using something called, or when you're actually using Google Drive as well. So I always feel the best way of going about this is to make sure that you've got your content ready in Google Drive so that you can simply add content from there, right? So here we're going to add our first poem. We want to add it to the topic called poetry, right? And it is visible for all students. Now, if you want to, you can add this description here. You could add more than 1 document for each bit of material that you're posting. Material is essentially just content that the learners are going to view. So you can schedule this post as well. If you don't want to post it immediately, we want to post it immediately. Right, so we're going to post our first set of content. Now we can create some more material. What also works well is if you're going to have something like term 1. So let's say, for argument's sake, we want to have material called term 2. Now we're going to add documents to it. Within this GUI, you can also add, or you can create content directly from it. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to actually post both sets of content. I'll post both sets of content into one tab called term 2. Right. So now I forgot here with term 2, I just want to quickly go and edit it, because if you don't add a topic to it, it'll just fall under a general topic. But you can always go back and edit it. We're going to change it. We want to make sure this is under poetry, save. Right, so there I've got my term 2 poetry. If learners click on it, they will see the 2 poems that I have there. Now this one, we don't really want to use it like that, so we simply delete it. Remember, whenever you're using one of the Google the Google web apps, if you right click on something, it's not going to give you any of the functionality within that app. That's why there's the 3 little buttons that you have over here. This is essentially a right click that you're going to do on the web. So this allows you to do certain things. We can rename it, we can delete it, etc., etc. Right. So now we've created our first bit of content. Because we've changed our settings that it doesn't immediately go to the stream, it doesn't say anything here. So this is why now I can tell the learners, please refer to the poetry term 2 under classwork. Right. Go through the notes on both poems. So in other words, what's happening here is I'm using my stream as a communication platform, and I'm using the classwork to post my content. If I don't necessarily do that, remember, if we just post our content on stream, it just goes and lies somewhere that is going to be hard for learners to access. You need to think of how will Google Classroom still be effective in 6 months' time. Now, if I posted this now and six months worth of messages have appeared, it's going to be very difficult for learners to find any of the content. But the way that I posted it now, if they click on classwork, there's a tab called poetry where they click on term 2, and there they have their documents. Now, the documents that I've created, work that they can go through. They can read the poem, they can go through the analysis, the summary, and then there's a tab on what does it all mean. And if they wanted to, there's a video where there's a video analysis of the poem, and then there's a small Quizlet where they can practice, or where they can look at some key questions, and then there's a quizzes where they can test their knowledge to see whether or not they understand it. So this in itself is a self-contained lesson that I'm essentially using, right? So it's a very learner-centered approach. a teacher creates the content and shares it with a learner who will then have to work through it on their own. Now, the key thing with this is it all boils down to the communication that we're going to have. So in other words, communication like please refer to poetry term 2 under classwork might not quite cut it. Go through the notes on both poems. We're probably going to want to add a little bit more to what we're saying here. But this is just a very quick view on how we actually post content to our class.